Welcome to this brain performance seminar on chronic stress and brain-body system implosion. I'm Etienne van der Walt, neurologist and head of science at Neurozone, and I'm going to guide you through this seminar effectively talking you through a PowerPoint slide presentation, and I really want you to understand the idea of chronic stress and brain-body system implosion from a team perspective, but also to understand what things that go wrong in a team can really lead to chronic stress in individuals and implosion of their brain-body system. And of course then, how can we build the capabilities of resilience to reduce the chances of developing chronic stress and brain-body system implosion? In fact, this is probably one of the most prevalent problems and enemy number one in business today. What can you expect to learn in this session? There are a number of themes that I just highlighted here, and you can read through them carefully if you want to take a bit of time, but I'll talk you through that too. In business, chronic stress is a result of ongoing perceived threats. So it's worthwhile to understand what these perceived threats are, and bear in mind that they are perceived as threats, which means that you and I might not perceive the same cue as threatening in an equal quality, but it still may remain something that I could develop chronic stress of, and it will not really affect you. So as a leader, it's worthwhile to take notice of this and really to understand what these threats can be that will lead to chronic stress in a business team. And this, of course, affects brain performance and high performance in a team significantly. Then secondly, we build resilience by optimizing the brain-body system, and this reduces the chances of brain-body system implosion, which effectively means that if you have a high resilience, the chances that adverse events and negative cues in a team that could even be ongoing will lead to chronic stress and implosion. So it's very important for you to understand how to build your own resilience, the neurobiological capacity of resilience, and also within the team. And at the same time, if you are very resilient as a team, it sets the platform to enhance skills and competencies for high performance. The third point here is very important, and I will pay attention to that carefully. The brain pays attention to the most basic cue that threatens its survival through a stress response that has implications for chronic stress and high performance. Firstly, the brain pays attention to the most basic cue that threatens its survival. It does it unconsciously, and I will explain that carefully. Secondly, the way the brain responds is through a stress response, and I will explain how that works in the brain and how this effectively can lead to chronic stress and reduction of high performance. And then the stress response is a normal and a good thing for us. It happens daily, regularly, and needs to happen. We need to be alerted to challenges. We need to be alerted to threats. We need to be alerted to potential rewards that we can maximize. And we do that through a stress response, which needs to be present and needs to work properly. But it needs to really work from the baseline of a relaxed physiological state. Chronic stress kills brain cells and brain circuits in critical parts of the brain. And effectively what they do is they reduce the neural circuitry and the composition in the hippocampus, which is an area we learn with, as you remember from the course thus far. It also affects the sophisticated prefrontal cortex. And what it does is it really enhances the capability of the amygdala, which is really the part of the brain where emotion is driven. And so you don't want this to regulate the system. You actually want the prefrontal cortex, which is the more sophisticated part of the emotional system, and also the area of convergence of the problem-solving brain. You want that area really to regulate the system. So you want prefrontal regulation, and you want the amygdalas to be attenuated, and the hippocampus to be flourishing with wonderful neural circuits, so that you can actually build memory continuously and at an optimum. Now, this is exactly what chronic stress kills. It reduces the effect of these three important components, and so the balance goes away. So it's really an important thing to understand, that chronic stress is at the flip side of brain performance, and you'll see that is the final note there. Chronic stress is at the flip side of the brain performance coin. Well, I'm also going to talk to you how to move into a state of prefrontal regulation, which is so important for the brain-body system to work optimally, and to set yourself up so you can enhance your skills and competencies and the effective performance within the team. And then finally, as part of the neurobiological promise, I really want to talk to you a little bit about what happens downstream when chronic stress is present in your brain-body system, how your body moves into a pro-inflammatory state, and what the effects of this state really are. And it's very important for high-performance leadership. It's also important for your health and wellness in general. So let's move on to the next slide. Before we talk about chronic stress and brain-body system implosion, it is worthwhile to just entertain this definition of business to the brain. We use our skills and knowledge to allocate resources together and to distribute these resources fairly in order to stay alive, survive, and thrive in life. This is a sentence which applies not only to organizations, to business in general, but also to any team who need to perform. Sports teams, teams within middle management, executive teams, etc. We work as a plural. It's we. We use our skills. We do it together. We also build skills and knowledge through building our learning capacity and learning and developing. And then we allocate resources, which requires a goal-directed state, drive, and also requires innovation capacity, the capability to solve problems, which of course requires skills and knowledge. And then in an ideal state, we distribute these resources fairly. It's of course a very difficult thing for many people who have different lenses in terms of what is being deemed fair, which comes from worldviews and a cause of a serious conundrum in the world today, as we all can understand and appreciate. But basically, this is still what the brain wants. You need to for the resources to be distributed fairly in order to stay alive, survive, and thrive in life. And that's a Maslow hierarchy, if you may, a neuroscientific Maslow. The brain needs to be alive. It needs to keep the brain-body system alive. It really wants to enable it to survive. But effectively, we want to thrive in life. And a thriving business needs to have all these components optimized. Moving on to the next slide, you'll see a line here. This line is a demarcation line. It really says something below goes wrong and something at the top goes right. So if things go right, it's above the line, and if things go wrong, it is below this demarcation line. It's in margin, and really towards the bottom, we are talking about brain-body system implosion, dysfunction of the brain-body system, etc., which results because of chronic stress. And on top of this line, you'll see I'm going to build a functional state, an optimized brain-body system, and then skills and competencies on top of that to explain how important it is for the brain-body system to be well and to be optimized so that we can have skills and competencies which we need so desperately in a high-performing team. So in this slide, you'll see I just added the idea of chronic stress at the bottom of this demarcation line, and towards the top, a relaxed physiological state. We need to be in a relaxed physiological state to perform at our best. Effectively, we need a stress response from a baseline relaxed physiological state when there are challenges that come our way every day. That means we are alert, the brain is awake, it can really recruit all the important parts of the brain to really solve the problem at hand at its best. And so a relaxed physiological state means that you are in something called a parasympathetic state. It's a state in which the blood pressure is low, the heart rate is low, and your metabolism is optimal. And so it really means that the system is at rest. Chronic stress, at the other hand, if you look downstairs underneath the margin here, does exactly the opposite. It means that there are ongoing threats, perceived threats that are effectively just continuously eroding the system and really switched on the acute stress response so that it becomes a chronic stress response. And so you have continuous stress. And so the machine never shuts down and rests and relaxes. So really chronic stress is effectively a machine that is ongoing, trying to solve a problem, trying to address something that is not going away. And effectively that leads to brain-body system implosion through a pro-inflammatory state, and I'll explain that a bit later. And now you can see on the slide that prevention of dysfunction is the first thing that is just on top of this line. If you are not ill, you're in a relaxed physiological state, it means that you are preventing dysfunction, which effectively, if it is large enough, lead to the definition of illness, and then you need a doctor or a therapist who need to look after you if you have dysfunction on the bottom of this line. Now, once you have prevented dysfunction, the idea of brain-body system optimization is a next really phase that you want to achieve. You want to really optimize your brain-body system to build resilience and to prevent any dysfunction. So you want to actually get yourself as high as possible above this line. And this is what the neurozone system, once again, also really attempts to do. And so the neurozone system, the model, has been developed from the understanding of what it is that really leads to dysfunction and what we can do to prevent that, so we can actually optimize our state, the brain-body system. And you can see in this next slide that we really build our skill sets and competencies on top of the brain-body system that is being optimized. So really what you want to have in your high-performing team to really prevent chronic stress and brain-body system implosion is to optimize the brain-body system, to provide a platform for the acceleration of the mastery of these skill sets and competencies that you need to master within your own particular field of work. That means that if you optimize your brain-body system, you can really enhance the mastery of these competencies, and that means that you take yourself even further away from this potential implosive state, which is a result of chronic stress. So finally, I just want to show you in the next slide, to complete the whole graph, that if you are in a dysfunctional state, chronic stress, in time the brain-body system implodes, and that will effectively in time lead to death. So brain-body system implosion means there's a pro-inflammatory state. Your brain goes and body goes into an inflammatory state, which in time will erode your system and cause illness and effectively death. So this is a dynamic state, the brain-body system. It doesn't mean you are not in a static state where you have to perform at your best, but you're going to be okay because you are young or your system is resilient enough. There's a continuous challenge for your system, trying to reduce resilience, trying to break it down, and trying to kill you, if I may, from a negative perspective. At the same time, if we look after ourselves, after one another, if we optimize the brain-body system and we build our skill sets and competencies and we really apply ourselves in that sense in life, we really build resilience and capabilities of staying well and thriving despite the negative forces in nature. So this is an important graph to grasp when it comes to chronic stress and brain-body system implosion. And I cannot stress enough that if you do not look after yourself and you just throw yourself into this corporate world within teams and leadership and in leadership positions, and you don't really look after the system, your chances of imploding is alarmingly high. And we know that many people have burnout today, and this is because of this implosive state. So let's find ways to prevent this in our teams. I'm going to continue, though, to explain the chronic stress and brain-body system implosion during this session. I want you now to just sit back and reflect on the slides we went through. You can revisit a bit, have a look at these different slides, look at how the brain really needs to be in a relaxed physiological state, and a basis or a platform from which we build different competencies and skill sets. And I want you to think about what happens if we, on the flip side, have chronic stress, and think about brain-body system implosion. Think about what it is that really forms a platform for the acceleration of the mastery of the competencies that we need in business, in our teams, and to what extent it really is important. I want you to just think about that and wonder about it and interrogate the question as well. And then take a brain break. So a brain break means that you take your head off this completely. You can take 5 minutes, or you can even come back to the next part of the chronic stress and brain-body system implosion brain performance seminar at a different stage. And I'll see you when you're back.